trying to figure out ultimately what is.
It's still a mystery as to why it took them. Hi, everyone. Happy Wednesday. I'm Lauren Conlin, and hello, Jarrett.
Hello, Lauren. Hello, everyone.
How's it going? Sorry, I had my YouTube up and it was echoing. I had to turn that off. I'm on my third coffee, Jarrett. I had trouble sleeping last night. Not unusual for me, but I guess I found myself when I was trying to go to sleep, I was just conscious of my body and I realized that my fists were in a ball and like I was scrunching my eyes up.
No.
And I was like, no wonder I can't sleep. What am I thinking of right now?
That means you're that means you're haunted by the ghosts of the cases you're covering, unfortunately. I actually clench or grind my teeth when I sleep. I don't do it as much as when I was working full-time as a prosecutor. So I don't know if there's a causal connection between your inability to sleep and the cases that you're covering and we've been covering. But I don't know, these things manifest themselves in a million different ways. So
I agree. And it is weird. I don't feel particularly stressed or anything like that. But yes, I feel like since I've been sort of going deep on the Utah case, it's been really incredible. The people that have been reaching out to me and sharing their stories and just sharing information. And I think last night I just was kind of deep into the darkness in my brain. And then it's because it's dark. It's really dark. And it's one of those cases that you have to compartmentalize the darkness.
Well, I'm catching up on it, and it is fascinating. Your coverage has been great. It's intriguing. It shows you the power of religion and faith and that it has over victims historically, courts, government. It's wild. That story's got it all.
And Jarrett, let me ask you something, because I was kind of trying to explain this. So this guy, David Lee Hamblin, and guys, sorry, we're gonna go into Kohberger after this, but now that I have Jarrett's attention, he's got charges from 2 different counties, 2 different cases. And so I saw that next Wednesday, February 19th, he has an in-person preliminary hearing. But then 30 minutes later, he's got a Zoom status hearing for the other case, the other county. So I'm like, well, does this mean that a pretrial hearing is not 30 minutes? Is she going to make a ruling? Or does he maybe not have to be on the next Zoom? He doesn't have to be there in his other
Well,
lawyers.
It sounds like somebody's not coordinating their schedules. I would, in my career, I've been scheduled 3 places at once on more than one occasion. So it sounds like the preliminary hearing's not going to take a half hour if it goes.
Well, that's what I was wondering. I was like, why is this scheduled for right after? I'm so confused. But he does have 2 different sets of lawyers, I noticed, so I don't know, whatever. It's
the
fine.
In-person preliminary hearing will probably, first of all, it starts before it, and it'll probably take precedent because it's in person. Logistically, Hamblin has to go there. So I think they'll move that.
Okay, that's interesting. I didn't even think about that. Just bad scheduling. But guys, let's get into Kohberger first. I want to get into Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni because there's a couple things that went down yesterday. Oasis, loved what you sent me, and Jarrett, I think Jarrett's going to love it too from a lawyer perspective. But first, Jarrett, let's get some updates on Kohberger here.
So Kohberger is something that I had the opportunity to cover pretty extensively and had the opportunity to comment on. So I'm watching it very, very attentively. What's happening now? And I want to talk about, there's pending motions from Ann Taylor, Kohberger's defense attorney. And last week they were in court. A couple of things that I have not seen said that I think is worth noting. Number one, Kohberger does not look good. He looks very, very thin. It may be a function of him not having his vegan meals or something like that, or possibly guilt is eating him alive, but I doubt it. He does not look good. He's very, very thin. If you look, his shirt and jacket are quite well fitted. And no one has really said anything about this. So I want to say, like, I've just noticed that. I think it's worth noting. But here's the big motion that's pending. The defense has taken the position that using investigative genealogy DNA, investigative genetic genealogy, violated Brian Kohlberger's Fourth Amendment right to privacy. Now, that if that argument is successful, the entire case goes away. All right, because
what?
Okay, so now here's what they're saying. They're saying the DNA that was left behind at the crime scene on the button of the knife was taken and run up through and applied through the consumer DNA indices from 23andMe, Ancestry.com. When that happened, a relative was identified. I think all of our listeners and viewers know this, okay? The argument is now Kohlberger has an expectation of privacy in his DNA and the DNA of his ancestors, so much so that it should result in the suppression of this evidence. Interesting argument. Judge Hippler is not buying this. He said, so you're saying someone has an expectation of privacy on DNA they leave behind at a crime scene. That is never going to carry the day. The stronger argument, though, the more interesting argument to me is Ann Taylor, Kohlberger's attorney, is saying, wait a minute. There are internal policies at the FBI that she's referencing that say they will not utilize these consumer DNA indexes to solve crimes. If that's true, that doesn't necessarily enhance Kohlberger's right to privacy. All of these arguments are made under the auspices of the Fourth Amendment. Now, the book, Howard Bloom's book, When Night Comes Falling, is fantastic. I worked on an upcoming project where Mr. Bloom is an active part of it. He did an interview this week with Megyn Kelly. Megan's done a great job with this case, too. I think they were overplaying the strength of this argument, though. I have to respectfully disagree with both the take that Howard Bloom and Megyn Kelly took. One thing Megyn Kelly said at the end, she said, you know, you still run into that situation where Kohlberger was wearing gloves and putting out the garbage, okay, if the DNA was suppressed. Just so we're clear, if the DNA is suppressed, this case is done. You don't even get to the part where he was putting out the garbage.
Oh, my God.
And Howard Bloom his book seemed like he called balls and strikes on both sides. Howard really seems concerned about the prosecution here a little bit. They also talked about two indications of blood at the crime scene, one found in a glove outside, one found on a banister of a staircase. That has not been discussed too much. So these are the things that are kind of floating around the Kohlberger case right now. I'm going to make a prediction. Judge Hippler is going to deny the motion to suppress the DNA, and the case is going to move forward.
Oh, yeah. I would agree with that as well. That's crazy. I mean, that is a very creative argument. I don't know if would you ever have the balls to put something like that out there? Because it does seem totally ridiculous.
Well, first of all, they're doing their job. So they have to take issue with this DNA. And here's the thing that we don't know, though.
Yeah.
Much of this hearing has taken place behind closed doors, okay, which is strange, okay? It's a new experience. If I was having a closed door hearing in my career, it was about funding. It was about confidential witnesses. Much of this case has played out behind closed doors. That's about to change. The transcript of that hearing, Judge Hippler ruled, is going to be released. He has sent a full transcript of those proceedings to the prosecutor, Stephen Nye, or Jeff Nye, and to Ann Taylor, and says, I'm giving you both the opportunity to redact the portions of these transcripts that you believe are prejudicial or shouldn't be released. You have 14 days to send them back to me. I'm going to release redacted transcripts. We are going to get a lot of information from those transcripts. It's going to be a big, here's why. The state has fought to keep these proceedings confidential. The defense has been the one asking for the release of this information.
Right. And I pinned our friend Kirk Nermy's post here. And Kirk, I'm so happy you're here, guys. This is so special. Kirk Nermy's in the chat. We have like a little.
Hello, Kirk. How are you? Great. Thank you. And that's a great point. I think so. So Kirk's statement is the DNA argument is not being made for trial, but for appellate courts down the road. So to answer Lauren's question, would I have the cogliones, as we say in Italiano, to make that argument? Yes, as a defense attorney, I'd have to make that argument. I have to, number one, preserve it. I can't raise it on appeal, like Kirk said, if I don't raise it in the trial or pretrial. It's the biggest piece of evidence. I got to do what I can to deal with this piece of evidence. So there's a lot of people online giving this argument more weight than I think it deserves. Here's the thing. It's going to be denied. Take it from somebody who's familiar with this stuff. And I'm looking at Kirk's latest comment. A death penalty attorney must make a record on any potential changes in the law. And correct. And to Kirk's point, the law on IgG is evolving. It is a new technology. But good luck saying you have a right to privacy with DNA you leave in a house you should not be in while you were burglarizing the place and hacking its inhabitants to death. Ain't gonna happen.
Right. Yeah. No, that all makes sense. And I think that, I don't know, guys, I'm learning a lot right now, things that I don't really, I guess, think of when I hear this stuff immediately, and then it helps to talk it out. So super helpful. And it's helpful to hear from you about the Kohberger case, because I feel like that's one of the cases that I don't necessarily keep up with. And by the way, Kirk Nermy, I mean, you have issues with StreamYard, but dude, I would drop you a link. You could come on with us. I mean, dude, it's time to get your internet a little bit better, okay? Because you're really doing us a disservice here by not joining us. But I'm gonna just pin some of these other comments about Ann Taylor. It's the smoking gun, in my opinion. So Ann Taylor must try to get it suppressed. She's really already been throwing spaghetti at the wall. At least the defendant cannot claim inadequate counsel on appeal. There you go.
Well, so Trishy's argument is good, but he could still claim inadequate counsel, and he will. So the question, so he will, it won't carry the day. I mean, this is like what drives me a little crazy, not a lot crazy, but everybody starts buying these arguments like hook, line, and sinker, and the prosecution's in trouble and they didn't follow the rules. Like, you can make these arguments. That doesn't make them so. Like, it's frustrating. And then people always come up to me, do you think they're setting this guy up? No, they're not setting the guy up. All right. Like, I always say, you know what? You're right. It must be the other guy with the white Hyundai Elantra with his cell phone number, who's weird looking, with his bushy eyebrows, who's strange, who lives in the Poconos and was bagging evidence, who has the same cell phone number, who happens to have the DNA. That's actually the real killer.
Do the voice. I'll say the killer. No, I'm just kidding.
Right. It's like, but it's like, I think they're setting this guy up. I'm always like, are you okay? Are you okay? Like,
but that's so funny. No, that's a really good point. And I just pinned this. AT didn't argue the right points in your opinion. I don't know enough of what she argued to add to that. But Jarrett, do you have anything to add?
Well, and I'll also say this, and Howard Bloom did an awesome job when he wrote that book, and I recommend the book. It's an easy read. It's awesome. It's actually sitting right here. I've read it twice. I don't know that I've ever read a book twice other than books I read to the kids. But he does a really good job of saying how the FBI ran down this IgG rabbit hole. But at the same time, the state, while doing their investigation, independently, these two roads lead to Brian Kohberger. You have this IgG, and then you have an identification of the white Elantra, an identification of the driver, a check on his phone records. All of a sudden, two people putting a puzzle together independently, somewhat independently, both lead to this picture of Brian Kohberger. Here's the important point. If by chance that DNA was suppressed or taken issue with, they still have the argument. We got to Brian Koberger through these traditional gumshoe detective tactics.
Right.
I don't know if that leads to probable cause, a white Hyundai Elantra and a guy with bushy eyebrows nearby, but they have these independent roads.
And I'm just pinning Tommy's comment for a minute, because I do think that people do have a lot of questions about that, but I don't know what to make of that, I guess. Right. Like, how do you go from,
that's the big question. Different question than what we're talking about right now.
Right.
I think so. First of all, there's been some developments on the roommate. She has made 3 statements and cannot identify Brian Koberger. Here's another thing from the Howard Bloom interview. Again, great book. This interview was a little bit sided toward the defense. He says it's a huge deal that the witness can't identify Koberger. To me, I would use that to my advantage. I would say, look, if she's lying, she'd say, yes, I identify him 100%. It's Koberger, case closed. She's saying, I can't remember. I was too drunk. I can't remember seeing his face. Now, I handle that by saying, what do you remember, Dylan? I remember bushy eyebrows. This guy looked this way. I always said this in court, if I was setting somebody up to lie, I'd make them lie real good. I'd make them have a lot of detail. I'd make them say, definitively, it's Koberger. Right? Yeah. Okay, here's what she's not saying. Here's what she's not saying. I was so drunk, I can't tell the difference between 1 people and 2 people. It was one guy with bushy eyebrows at that time coming down that hallway. Whoops, this guy's DNA happens to match a person matching that physical description. I know you're not going to find a perfect witness. I know they're going to tear her apart on cross-examination, but you always circle back. You say, wait a minute. What Dylan is saying is supported by the time of the killing, the physical description of this defendant, his DNA, the fact that he was alone. He was traveling alone. It was one car that pulls up to the place. So what Tommy's asking, how could he do this alone? There's just no indication that anyone else was involved. It has to make sense. And I've seen the reenactments. And again, I'm not a fighting expert or anything like that. I've seen the reenactments. It's not impossible, especially when you're dealing with young kids that were buzzed in the middle of the night when you've been training for this. It's entirely possible he moved through that house with his knife and got out of there in time. There's no indication that anybody else was there.
Like the killings were just so brutal, so vicious. I can't imagine I guess not hearing, you know what I mean? That fight. But I mean, I guess other roommates hearing the struggle. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's not a perfect situation. There are definitely major questions, but I always say, I can't help my bias. I'm sorry. It's just the way it is. But
no,
I always look and I say, if I'm putting Dylan on the stand, what am I highlighting here? And they're going to say she was drunk. She can't remember. No, she's not saying she was too drunk. Like there's drunk and then there's I don't know my name. Okay. Yeah, now, the 8 hours, that's a concern. Why did she wait the 8 hours? And she didn't call 911. Those are things that, as a defense lawyer, I would take issue with. Okay. Mm-hmm. What did you know? What were you, these guys have to prep her extensively, which I'm sure they will, and prepare her for the onslaught of the cross-examination that's going to come from Ann Taylor.
Yeah. And look, I happen to believe, based on what I've seen, I mean, it seems like he did it. It seems like he's the guy, but I agree. There are all these questions, I think. And I guess I don't think the trial is going to be open and shut. And I don't think you do either, but it's going to be pretty intense. And I see why it's going to be probably a very long trial, just like Karen Reed. Because there's going to be so much reasonable doubt, in my opinion.
It's going to be months long. And here's why. Because if you look, here's just a preview. You have your factual witnesses. You'll have your DNA. You'll have your IgG DNA experts. You'll have your cell phone experts. You're going to have your car experts. You're going to have your FBI experts. You're going to have your Pennsylvania team that caught him. You're going to have the evidence that was collected at several different scenes. That scene was large. That scene was a forensic services team was through there. So all of those witnesses in your case in chief, all of those witnesses are going to have rebuttal witnesses from the defense. They're going to fight them at every level. If you look at a case and it's 4 legs of a stool, they're going to try to take out every leg. And the only way to do that is to put counter witnesses on. And they're going to do it. It's going to be a long, long trial.
Yep, I agree with you. And just to plug my podcast, The Outlier, my other podcast, I did interview Howard Bloom on that. And I think it was last spring really. So there was, we were at a different place with this trial, but you should go look for that one because he was very nice and he's really knowledgeable about the case. I mean, clearly he's biased, but who isn't, right?
He wasn't clearly biased in his book. I was just surprised with. So?
Okay.
No, I thought he called it pretty straight because I was looking for that, and I was preparing to do what became a pretty extensive discussion on this for another project, and I thought he called it fair. I was surprised by his assessment of the case, and the guy's an expert on the case, but his assessment on it at this point with Megyn Kelly, I was a little surprised about where he's at with it.
Yeah. Okay. All right. That's interesting. Maybe I'll go and listen to Megyn Kelly and kind of listen to a different side of him. But are we good on Kohberger for now to move on to the next case?
Absolutely.
Okay. So why don't we quickly and I don't think this will take too long, but I want to briefly pull this up. Luigi Mangione. Let me get, there was something I wanted to show everybody. Oh, here we go. Okay. Luigi Mangione. This was filed last week. And I mean, it seems to me that he's getting prepared to possibly face capital punishment based on this filing, which says that they're adding a counsel that is, I think hold on, sorry, it's so small. I'm leaning forward. It says, Mr. Moskowitz is a member of the SDNY capital panel and has frequently been found learned in the law of capital cases. And they're adding him to Luigi's case. So I was like, damn, they are ready for the death penalty to be on the table.
So the federal case, he's charged in 2 venues. He's charged by the Manhattan District Attorney's Office, and Mangione has been charged with a killing with a firearm charge by the feds, which could carry a death penalty.
Yeah.
So that's why we're in federal court. That's why we're dealing with the federal defenders. Now, if in the realm of possibilities, you can face the death penalty and the government will put him on notice of that, you are entitled and required to have an attorney that is learned and experienced and qualified to defend death penalty cases. Now, I've done death penalty cases. I've not defended them, but I've been deemed qualified. We used to have a list of qualified lawyers. I'd be prosecuting a death penalty case, but at the same time on the list of qualified people that could defend the case. And it's a short list because if you live in a county like mine, you don't see it pursued all that often. So that is why they're adding Abraham Moskowitz to the team, because he's death qualified and is prepared for the rigors of a death penalty case. There's mitigation evidence that needs to be prepared. There are certain aspects of the case that you don't have unless it's a death penalty case. So you need someone.
You guys know how I feel. I am the opposite of a Luigi supporter. I cannot even explain this to you enough. I think it's ridiculous that he has fans. I think it's insane. But I'm kind of like, really? The death penalty? I don't know. It seems like they really are making an example out of him, starting with the ridiculous perp walk. But I don't know, Jarrett.
That looked like the end of a crazy movie, didn't it? Like when they finally get the guy, where you're like this, like what was the movie with Russell Crowe and Jamie Foxx? where Russell Crowe was the dad of a victim and a husband of a victim, and he was coming after Jamie Foxx, who was the DA. It looked like a scene out of that when they were.
Oh wait, I feel like you're talking about if I think what you're thinking of, I think you're talking about the other guy, Gerard Butler or something, where he
was it Gerard Butler? Who did I say it was?
Law-abiding citizen. Because I mean,
that's it.
That's so weird that I knew that movie is so old, and I actually loved that movie when it came out, which is so funny that you just brought it up because I know exactly what you're talking about. Wow, that's weird, Jarrett.
It looks like a scene from that movie, and
yes.
I'm almost positive that was the movie that scene, because when I saw Mangione's perk block, look, I think you have to realize the weight of the government is coming after this guy, and he's entitled to his defense. This stuff of this online support stuff that he has is garbage. I'm sorry. I think that's nonsense. I mean, he killed a man in cold blood, and a man with a family, shot him in the back.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know where we are when people are celebrating that kind of criminal conduct in this country.
I know. Tell me about it. And I mean, it's a different conversation, but I guess my issue with death penalty, and it's not that I have an issue, but I just feel like we need to reassess sentencing for pedophiles. And so it's like I just feel like pedophiles don't nearly get the punishment that they should. And then we've got this guy who made everything a spectacle, and we're going to try to sentence him to death because it was so public. I guess that's just my feelings. And maybe
I don't see him, even if they pursue it, I don't see him getting it. And here's why.
Yeah.
It's clear that Mangione suffers from some kind of a psychological infirmity here, and physical infirmities that would mitigate what he did. Doesn't excuse what he did. Don't misunderstand what I'm trying to say. I'm trying to say that there are mitigating factors in Mangione's life that, when applied against the aggravating factor, which is he killed a man with a gun, will allow a jury to say life imprisonment as opposed to death. There is there's clearly a psychiatric history.
But I don't know about that, because you could argue that in his journal writings, he was rational. He had some rational thought about, I'm not going to bomb or use a bomb like I originally wanted to, because too many innocent people would be killed. He actually wrote that when he was going through ways to potentially kill Brian Thompson. So wouldn't that be an argument for like, oh, look, he's thinking rationally. He's not.
Those are arguments to say he's not crazy, and that he's done things that are indicative of intentional behaviors. He knew what he was doing. Here's the thing. Sane people do not track insurance company executives, journal about it, and shoot them in the back. But when I say sane, I'm not saying legally insane. I'm saying there was clearly a psychological break. He got offline. He broke from his family. He goes underground, and then this thing happens. This isn't a normal functioning person. It's not. Yeah. So there's going to be those psychiatric diagnoses present. I'm not qualified to make that assessment, but I kind of know it when I see it. And the things you're talking about would suggest to me he's perfectly sane to understand if I shoot somebody in the back, they're going to die. I committed a murder with a gun. That doesn't mean there aren't psychiatric factors that would go against death penalty here.
Okay. So two different things here. And I think he has a hearing. He definitely has 2 hearings next week, one state, one federal. I'm going to see if I can go down to the courthouse for the state hearing. And I think I told you this, but I did have jury duty, and I had his judge in the state case. And that judge was an interesting guy. He was pretty rough on the jury pool. Normally, I think that judges are really nice to the jurors. And
that's been my experience.
Jarrett, he was really acting. This judge, his name was Greg Caro. He was kind of acting like we were lucky to be there and serve our civic duty. And he screamed at one of the jurors who said that he couldn't be fair and impartial because he was the victim of a crime. And so the guy actually looked over at the defendants. There was more than one defendant. And he said, I just look at them and I think they're guilty. And the judge, oh my gosh, Jarrett, he flipped out. He literally was like, yes. And then he said this, and I was confused about this because he's like, first he actually said the words "get out." So the guy who was old, he gets up and he gets out, and the judge was like, Caro was like, I don't know why you wouldn't do civil court instead of criminal. And I'm thinking, wait, we had a choice. And I think the guy was thinking the same. So he kind of turns around and he starts to say something. And then Caro again goes, just get out. And then everybody was like,
maybe he was having a bad day. I don't think there's ever been a jury panel where I didn't have somebody say that. I mean, it happens all the time. Somebody will always come in and say, I think, oh yeah. I had a lady, like, I've had the craziest jury panels, but I had a woman one time clutching her purse, just like staring at me. And I'm like, I look at the killer. I'm like, what do you think is in that bag? I'm like, why is she clutching her purse? Like, but I've had people say, and then people say stuff to get out of it. And
totally. And that's what people were doing.
People pleasers where they think, I'm going to tell this lawyer what I think he wants to hear. Then they're being questioned by the other one and say the total opposite of what I'm sitting there like, well, this isn't the person you want.
I definitely was. I also didn't like that we had to stand up and just say our business. So I refrained from saying a lot. I knew I shouldn't be there. I was like, first of all, I cannot help myself. I'm probably going to go home and research this case. Second of all, I did a Fox Nation special on Luigi Mangione, and there most likely would be a part 2. I probably shouldn't be in your courtroom, but I was like, I don't want everyone knowing my business. I feel like people were like, oh, I have small children. I'm like, so do I, bitch. So do I. But like, I don't want you guys to know about it. So I sat there and suffered for 2 days, but the voir dire was an enlightening process, Jarrett. There's just one thing I'll share. I thought it was so funny. And I also was like, I could never be on a jury with some of these people because of their thinking. But when they kept saying, do you think you can be fair and impartial? They would, a juror would say, well, I'll try my best. And finally, the prosecutor was like, okay, let me put it to you this way. If you're on a plane and you ask the pilot, is he going to land the plane safely? And the pilot says, I'll try my best. Like, is that going to be an okay answer? And then he says, all right, so let me ask you again. Can you, whatever. He says it again. I'll try my best. I was just like, dude, I was like, seriously?
Yeah.
Like, I'm going to kill these people. This is so insane. And then one more thing, sorry, because it was so funny. One guy, so then they start to say in this trial, they start to go into details. Well, we actually don't have the murder weapon. And I was like, oh, all right. Well, I kind of perked up a little bit and I was like, okay. And so they talk about circumstantial evidence. And one guy's sitting back in his chair and he's like, well, I don't believe in circumstantial evidence. And the defense attorney this time goes, okay, so, you walk outside, it's cloudy, everything's wet. Can we assert that maybe it rained? And he just goes, like he refused. And I'm like, cool. This would be a panel of very difficult people to go back and forth with. And also, like, I'm a loudmouth bee. Nobody wants me on a jury anyway, right? I would probably try to influence other people. It would be ridiculous. But anyway, he was the judge in Mangione's case. I went on a tangent.
I'll tell you, like, some people want in on those jury panels. They want to share too much information when they're being asked. It's wild. It was always I have all these tricks that I would like use to like try to personalize. Like I would like, Ms. Conlon, it says here that you have a family. Does the fact that you have children going to give you any pause in assessing, there were children involved in this case? Or I would tie it into your career. Like I would look at what these jurors did. Let's say you have like a person that works for an ambulance, a person that's a plumber, this, that. And I would always say in my closing, like, as a plumber, as a grocer, as a this, like you're like doing call outs. And they're all like, oh, this is great. He just referenced me. It's like I would always try to take all that bio information and use it, in my assessment. But I'll tell you, it's a fun process. There's a meme out there that says like, here's what jury duty is. The government needs you and 12 strangers to come in and solve a murder for free. Basically, it's like,
basically. And you know what it is, Jarrett? Like the whole process was actually fascinating. But what I didn't like about Caro also is that he really did not respect our time as jurors, which I noticed right off the bat. I mean, at one point we went through this whole thing in the morning, and then he gave us 90 minutes for lunch, which I was like, dude, what am I going to do down here? Please don't do this to me. So we get back. And by the way, 100 Center Street, if anyone hasn't been there, any New Yorkers, it literally is a hellhole. It smells like absolute asshole. Okay. Like the inside of a butthole. It's hotter than hell. I asked them, can you turn down the heat? And it makes it just smell. There's shackled defendants yelling at their public defenders, like screaming at the top of their lungs. It literally feels like a section of hell. So we get back from this 90-minute lunch, and I get back like 15 minutes early, and the clerk comes out and he's like, sorry guys, it's going to be a while because we need more jurors here, to join us. So then, and it wasn't even like, it was just like a whatever. So then 90 more minutes we had to sit in that hallway. There's no seats. I'm on the floor. I almost burned my clothes. Okay. It was so gross. We get back in there. Caro doesn't apologize. But what happens is we have new jurors, and he goes through the whole spiel that we already went through. And that's when he goes, oh, sorry to the people that were already here. I'm like, you're sorry?
First of all, when I heard a 90-minute lunch, that meant the judge had other things going on too.
Oh, probably. I was so pissed, dude. Jarrett, I was so pissed. I was like, he does not respect our time. No way.
It's brutal. And then there's this checklist of things you have to go through and that's the worst. And when a jury is charged or instructed, that's even worse, because a judge has literally a binder and they're reading. They have to read it verbatim. Like, I'm in the front row. I just tried this case and I'm sitting there. I'm like climbing the walls at that point. Like some charges I've had have been 2 hours where you're just sitting there. Like you can't talk, and I'm just like that. Yep. It's tough. That's why people think being a judge, you could be articulate and creative. Oftentimes you have to read from a script, because any deviation, you're setting yourself up for a problem. So,
well, yeah, and he made that clear because, one last thing, because one woman, like I said, these people were driving me insane. And one woman was like, they asked her a question and she's like, I don't know. I just feel like, you as the judge is going to sit here and tell me 2 + 2 = 5. And I'm going to have to nod my head and take what you say as fact. And he literally goes, none of this is my opinion. I'm actually reading from New York case law. Like, it was wild. I was like, what? That he has said is based on opinion, dude. Like, I was just shocked at some of these people. But anyway, I'll close the loop on that. But I do want to get into this Baldoni versus Lively, because Oasis brought this video to my attention yesterday. And at this point, Jarrett, I'm like, wow. I mean, I know Justin Baldoni's lawyer had to have seen this, but I'll play it really quickly because I feel like this is going to be Exhibit A should this ever go to trial. All right.
It's just as important to say, okay, I believe in this, and that's why I'm standing up for it, and that's why I'm not being difficult. And then there are other moments to go like, am I the asshole in the room? Like, what is happening here? I would show up on a set. I knew that they just wanted me to show up and look cute and stand on a little pink sticker where I'm supposed to go and say what I'm supposed to say. But I also knew that that wasn't fulfilling for me, that I wanted to be a part of the storytelling, that I wanted to be a part of the narrative, whether that be in the writing, in the costume design, in creating the character. And sometimes I had directors or producers or writers who would welcome that and invite that once they saw that I was able to offer that. And sometimes I would have people who really resented that because they were like, we just hired you to be an actor. When I went in the meetings, I would just seem like I'm just there to be the actor and ready to get the gig. I wouldn't reveal that I actually need to have authorship in order to feel fulfilled. So I think that for them, sometimes that might have felt like a rug pull because you're like, you're trying to assert yourself into something that we didn't hire you to do. And so it was a really strange position to be in because I felt like I don't want to just like be an actor. Like I want to have more authorship.
Okay. So she literally just admitted, this is 2022, this Forbes Women's Conference. She admitted that she misrepresents herself as just an actor, but she really admitted just now that she kind of pulls the rug out from underneath people and says, nope, I want to write. I want to take authorship. What?
So a couple of things. That's exactly what was the push and pull between she and Baldoni, and she's acknowledging that it could be a problem. Here's the thing. First of all, I know somebody asked her about an outfit in an interview, and it was like, would you ask somebody, if you want people to take you seriously, do not wear something that is that distracting. she has shiny stuff hanging from her clothes and she's talking and it's totally distracting. It's like, don't look at me as just an actress and I'm going to have all this shit on my dress so you can just look at this. Like, you want to be taken seriously, wear something that doesn't dangle and look like ornaments on a Christmas tree. So that's number one. Number two, this is the roadmap for what was ultimately the problems on the set, which is you were hired as an actress. Baldoni was hired as both. He was the producer and had the option on the book and was going to play the lead. And that push and pull in the Baldoni response and retort to her claims is exactly why this case is being pursued against him. And there's this fight. That's a pretty important, that statement right there is highly suggestive that what he's saying is true. Doesn't mean she could not have been harassed. Doesn't mean she couldn't have been the victim of inappropriate conduct. But everything that's coming out, I have to say, inures back to the Baldoni position. As I said last week, I was asked to join a show and kind of they said, would you mind like summing up a pro, not saying you have to take the position, but what are the pro Blake Lively things? And I had a tough time saying it as I'm looking at what's coming out.
It's tough. It has been. And you guys, people that have followed my coverage of this, I was taking her side at first. I was strictly Team Blake. And I was like, everyone just leave her alone. You know, she came forward and then you can't ignore the evidence and you have to be reasonable enough to change your mind. If you see damning evidence, I just want to confirm that I am seeing the full context. And I think, again, what's coming out daily, we are seeing full context here.
Here's another thing though, Lauren, you and I have worked in television and different things. If you want to be a producer, they have powerful agents. Blake Lively has negotiate it, like put it in the deal. I don't understand.
Right.
You don't show up on a multi-million-dollar project and say, not only am I going to be an actress, I'm going to step on everybody's toes and do your job too. That has consequences. Like, it's no joke. Negotiate that.
Also, how about this, Blake? Write your own damn script. How about that? You want to write so bad? You have all the sources. You have literally everything at your fingertips. Why can't you write your own script? And I'm not trying to be mean, but why do you want to mess with other people's scripts? Or go work for a TV show, write a couple episodes. This is just wild. She's got a lot of power. Why can't she write and sell her own script? I need to know. But it should
not come, that should not, like you show up for a shoot, right? Everybody's there, including people actually paid to do the job she's trying to do. And she's going to say, I'm not standing on my pink little marker, as she said. I'm also going to do your job and your job. That's just not how the world works. And on a movie set or in my law office, I have people that work here, paralegals. I don't send them to court. You know, I don't do their job. Like,
no. And how does this work with the union, the Writers Guild union? I mean, I'm assuming, Jarrett, you can't just have Joe Schmo out of nowhere who's not in the union come and just start messing with your script.
No, these things have we're not having fun here. There's consequences for that. This is a business. Movies are a business. I know it looks like everybody's having a good time, but the reality is, it's inappropriate when you want to come in and take over something that is insured, bonded, been worked on by a lot of people. There's people that invested a hell of a lot of money in it, and you're going to come in because you're Blake Lively and start calling the shots. Look, you're a great actress, whatever, fine. If you want to do that, negotiate it before you get there.
Yeah, this is, like I said, it's just kind of not looking great for Blake as more comes out. And it's curious to me, Jarrett, maybe she is so not self-aware that she doesn't think that this is wrong because she feels like as a beautiful woman or a beautiful actress, her voice has been suppressed somehow. But the thing is, you still have to represent yourself truthfully. I mean, for the respect of other people, for the respect of yourself and your own career. I don't know. I don't.
Everybody turns themselves into the victim. Like, you're getting paid millions and millions of dollars to be an actress, and she's acting like people, when I show up, expect me to do my job, and they're paying me millions of dollars to do it. They're the bad guys? Really?
Apparently.
Like, come on.
apparently.
Look,
I want to.
I live in the real world where when you're paid for a job, you're expected to do it. Doesn't make you a victim. Doesn't make you a victim. So
That's actually a great point.
Everybody tries to squeeze themselves. You have covered cases with victims. I've seen victims in my career, and they're not getting paid millions of dollars to do a job. I don't know. I look at that and I think, we do this in society where everybody wants to play that role. I don't know. The smallest violin playing for Blake.
You literally, I think you nailed it. I think that's a mic drop moment where it's like, Blake Lively, are you trying to play victim here? Are you even trying to play victim and coming out there and saying, oh, poor me. Everyone just wants me to act. They don't want me to use my brain. Well, okay, so do something about it, but in the right context, in the right way. You're not a victim for being paid millions of dollars to stand on your pink mark. That's not
every job I ever, and she like belittled her job as an actress.
That's bad.
And here's the other thing: every job I've ever worked, be it in retail, everybody at the lowest rung thinks they can run the whole operation, right? But they don't, and they're not going to. And that's not to say she's not important, talented, and capable. Different conversation. But if you think the world's going to feel sorry for you because they don't let you run $100 million movie set, I'm sorry. Come on. Wake up and grow up. Grow up.
I agree. I think that was a really great point, Jarrett. She's playing victim. And I also want to just play this quick 15-second clip. Justin Baldoni was on a podcast in November of 2024. And this was basically a month before Lively dropped her lawsuit. And he says this, and I think that this is really important foreshadowing here. But if you can help it, just try not to listen to his weird mouth noises. I really felt like I was inside his mouth. The sound on this, I was like, ugh. I just don't like it. It kind of grosses me out. But
is the name of this thing Gents Talk? Is that what it's called?
Yeah, it's Gents Talk podcast.
Intense year. This morning I sent a text message. I had anxiety.
Why is that?
I haven't talked about this yet, but.
Oh, wait, this is not the. Wait, sorry, that wasn't it. Sorry, I thought it was, damn it. Hold on, let me find it. I posted it on, you know what? Let me get my YouTube because I posted it on mine. I posted a short. I think I did.
First of all, just on that, these people are so neurotic. They live in their own heads. It's crazy. It's crazy.
I totally agree. Okay, here it is. Here it is.
Jeff.
Okay.
The video message to my best friend Jamie and the president of my company, Tara. And I told them that I wasn't in the best place. I told them that I was exhausted, that I haven't given myself time to recover or time to heal. I had a intense year, a lot of material success and a lot of emotional stress. It's very hard on me and my family. And I wear a lot of hats and I carry a lot because I love what I do. I love the company I built, the brand that we've built. I love the people that work for us. I love the movies that we make. This morning I messaged.
Okay, so I mean, sorry. Besides, the gulping and was that me? I felt like I was inside his freaking mouth. It just grossed me out. I'm like,
that is a very, very sensitive microphone.
Right? I know. My gosh. I know. And this is interesting. Sheila, I agree with you. And that's what kind of turned me off, I guess, in the beginning. But I've changed my tune now in thinking that he has been through a lot. He did not sign up for what Blake and Ryan allegedly put him through. I'm just gonna.
Is that what he's referencing? You think?
100%, Jarrett. 100%.
Are we supposed to feel sorry for these people? They should try this for 5 minutes.
I mean, so I get that. I get it.
Like I've had great success this year, but I've been through a lot. Who hasn't?
Yeah. No, you're right.
Oh, God. It's like such a burden to be a movie star. Come on. And I look at, I understand. Try this for 5 minutes. Try practicing law. Try being a garbage man. Try do any of this. Like are these people nuts?
Yeah. No, I completely know where you're coming
Why
from.
I'm not on Team Blake or Team Justin. I can't stand either side.
Your Team
God, just
Jarrett.
do your job, get your check, and shut up.
Team Jarrett. No, I'm just kidding. But really, but no, you're absolutely right. It's just interesting because going back to his voicemail last week where he just totally was grasping and just kind of apologizing to keep the peace. And it's crazy. I just feel like he was dealing with a lot. I mean, come on, Blake hired her own editor. She had her own private screening. Can you imagine if you're the director and it's your production company and you're the star of your movie is taking, I mean, it's bad. It's ballsy. It's bad. Oh, wait, here we go. Jack Fox. I love this. You've got all-star people in our chat today.
Let me tell you, I wish my biggest problem was my multi-million-dollar movie and my multi-million-dollar world-famous actress was pushing back on my production too much. Really, like, welcome to Earth. You know, it's like, let's bring this down.
Also, just to play devil's advocate, I feel like, it's tough. We can't diminish everybody else's stress, right? Because everybody has their own stresses. So I just want to say that as well.
Here's what I say, though. Take everything an actor or an actress says with a grain of salt. They're acting. They're playing a role. He's playing a role there. He wants, ignore all the success over here, but because it's so hard. It's just so hard. I'm fighting so hard for all of this. Like, come on.
I know. Wow. Jarrett, how do you really feel? Maybe you didn't sleep last night. I feel
No,
like
I
you're spicy.
I just watched
today.
this stuff. I'm like, I don't know.
You're so spicy today.
I spend my life with real people doing like tough work, and to see that and like the minutia analysis that goes on and like the people that suffer for Justin's struggle and that's not to say Blake Lively could not have been the victim of harassment. That's a different story. We're talking about two different things. Because I would never condone that. If somebody at whatever level, I would never condone that, obviously.
No, you're totally. I get that as well. And I kind of said, I think it was last week, I went back through her lawsuit where she references other cast and crew members feeling the same way that she did and voicing their concerns. And that's where I'm like, where are these people? Because Blake could use all the help she can get right now. And these people are silent. So I don't know. And I thought about what you said, like there's no bombshells that are going to be dropped, right? Because I'm thinking, oh, maybe there is. That's why this looks so bad. They're letting this happen. No bombshells. It would be all out on the table now.
It would be in the complaint. That's what we said. There would be no reason at that point to hold back.
And I'm sorry, Jack, this was so funny. The way Justin talks on that voice, he just has this like vocal fry that's not very cute. I don't know. This vocal fry tends to bother me sometimes if it stays in that, you know what I'm talking about? That one place. Justin stays there. It kind of is like he's trying, or who knows. Wow, everybody's using the term Jarrocrat. Maybe I should have gotten the mug that says Jarrocrat instead of nobody puts Jarrett in the corner, by the way. I don't know.
Well, listen, you can
do
it. But you can appreciate my frustration with this stuff.
Of course. But I actually just had an idea, not about this, but we should do a giveaway of one of the mugs and nobody puts Jarrett in the corner. It's so good.
Sure, absolutely. That sounds great.
Yeah, we should definitely do a giveaway. I actually ordered 2 of them and I was going to send one to you, but I ordered them here first because it was just easier because I love them so much. And there's actually t-shirts as well. So if you would like a t-shirt, and that was all because of,
I'll have to get them. Yeah.
That was all because of Sal, by the way. Sal told our merch girl, Sal's like, oh, you should do a t-shirt. And she's like, no problem. So wait, I did clip it and make it a short. Oh, but I think I posted it on Instagram or something, our Instagram. I'm not sure where it went. But yes, now you have to go. Let me find the merch and I'll put it in the chat right now. I've got the merch link right here. I think it goes right out. Actually, here we go. I'll share it. Of course I can do that. All right. Here we go. So we have
oh, nice.
I know. We have the mugs right here. Nobody puts Jarrett in the corner, and then the front has the logos right
Oh,
there.
very cool. That's awesome.
I know, right? And then let me go back. Here are the t-shirts. And then we have other t-shirts that just say someone knows something, because I do like that phrase. But yeah, we got a lot of good merch that people should check out. It's so fun, but we should definitely do a giveaway. So I will organize that pretty soon.
All right.
Let me see. And Jarrett, what else is going on with you? I feel like I haven't talked to you in a while.
My life has become like a normal, boring lawyer. I was in court this morning, like in motions court, which is like the most boring place you can be in the courthouse. So I go to the courthouse where I fought all these big, crazy cases, and I'm like filing a motion. Like with some bureaucrat on the other side, I take my, but I mean, I'm happily practicing law. I love it. Other than that, we have our special coming out tomorrow night on Crime Nation. Lauren and I, and Lauren in particular, has covered the Kansas Moms case extensively. So our friends at Crime Nation put together a special, and it was an honor to be a part of it. So that comes out tomorrow night. And also the following Thursday is the Hugo Solinsky case, which was my case I prosecuted here in northeastern Pennsylvania. And for those of you that aren't familiar with that case, Google Hugo Solinsky. Definitely check it out. But that's a case. It's very difficult to tell that story in 1 hour, but they did a great job with it. So I'm looking forward to the next 2 weeks of Crime Nation.
Yeah, and I haven't seen the full Kansas Mom episode from start to finish. I mean, I'm just a small part of that, but I'm really anxious just because I feel like, I don't know. I speak to the locals so much that I almost feel like it's my responsibility or my burden. I don't know. How am I trying to say what I'm trying to say? I can't.
I get it, but you don't. But there's a situation where you can control what you say. You don't produce. So like, hopefully and I'm sure it'll be a great. Crime Nation does a great job.
They do a great job. Yes. Actually,
Saturday night. I was going to say Saturday night. I did a bunch of New York Homicide, which is a great show on Oxygen. So one episode I was in, so I was like, this was the first time I was part of that show. It's season 3. So I come home from dinner. I was like, all right, Daddy's going to be on. And I was their mafia expert, which is a tremendous honor to be the New York Homicide mob expert this year. There was literally one 15-second clip. And it really was a small part of this particular story. And my kids are like, that can't be it, Dad. I was like, that's it.
But you're like, there's more episodes, so don't worry.
Yeah, there is. So it's a great, they did a great job. I just had a very small, so I was like, anybody I told to watch that, they're like, we just watched it for that.
That's so funny. Oh my gosh. Well, they should tell you the episodes that you're in a little bit more. I mean,
I know. Like that was all I said about that case. So I knew it wasn't going to be much. But
I was going to say, so Laura Engel, who you guys know from News Nation, she's also in Crime Nation a lot, but she just texted me asking about you and Hugo. And I was like, yeah, he's the prosecutor. So you should talk to him. Get on. Laura does a weekend show. So that would be awesome.
I would be honored. And certainly there's plenty of Hugo stories.
Yeah, definitely. And you've been on True Crime Cast, I think twice, talking about the Hugo case. And that's a great podcast. If you guys don't listen to True Crime Cast, that's awesome. And Crime Nation, it's on the CW. So that is, I think you just check your local listings. But
so it's in the papers here today that the episode's coming up on Solinsky. It's like a week early. So it's on the headlines like Solinsky to be featured on. So I'm coming into the courthouse and the guards were like, hey, Jarrett, what channel's CW on X? I don't know. I was like, listen, just use the search function on your thing. I don't know what channel. I don't know what cable provider you have. Do you have the cable? Do you have the YouTube TV? What's going on?
Yeah, it's. I think it's pretty accessible for anyone that has YouTube TV, Hulu, or just regular, even like the cheapest cable. Because I think it's like you said, it's local.
They have a free app too. Their app is free, so the show pops on. It ports onto the app the next day. So Crime Nation is a great show. The people that do that show are great. It's visually,
they are great.
They're second to none. I mean, I watched just the stuff. Last year I did think it was 3 episodes of Crime Nation. And when you see the finished product, because everything is always a little chaotic when you're working on these things, you never know what it's going to look like. It's just so smooth and just visually so pleasing. It's like they're top notch.
They do different cases too. So it's not the type of show that you turn on and you're like, oh, another episode about, a case that's been covered incessantly. So it's not all Delphi. It's not all, but yeah, it's definitely, I mean, there were cases that I had never heard of, and Hugo was one of them, which is why I find it to be so interesting. But I just think the Kansas mom's case has not gotten nearly enough coverage. So I am excited for that story to be told and, for these women to be remembered. So it's time, it is time.
It is. And not enough people know that story. So
yeah. But all right. So we've got that going on tomorrow night, and we'll be back next week, I'm sure, with another episode. And guys, if you want us to cover certain cases, we'll continue with the Baldoni Lively, whatever's going on in the true crime space, we got it covered. But just shoot us a note. We'll cover whatever you want. It's fun. Okay. Well, Jarrett, anything else here?
Just like and subscribe, as we always say at the end. And
yep.
We're plugging along at True Crime, Primetime Crime on our channel. Remember that too.
Yes, there's Primetime Crime and then Pop Crime, 2 separate channels, but you got both of us, both places. So make sure you like and subscribe, to both. All right, guys, have a good one. Bye.
Thanks.
Bye, Jarrett.
Happening. You're trying to figure out ultimately what is.
It's still a mystery as to why it took them